Borderlands 2 was a game released by Gearbox in 2012 as one of the best games ever made. It could be argued that the series was where the hero shooter genre came from, being a class-based shooter with RPG mechanics, but it is definitely the original looter shooter, or at least the one that put the genre on the map. There are a million reasons to like this game. The humor, to an extent, still holds up, the enemies are super inventive, its skill trees make for a unique form of progression, and even its melee is pretty fun. It sure is a shame that Gearbox hasn't made anything else. Well, obviously that's not true. Look at the length of this video, but Gearbox's other titles are forgettable at best and absolute train wrecks at worst. I was one of like 3 people that actually wanted to play Battleborn, but because Blizzard can't stand to have a fair contest, they released Overwatch on the same day. I know it's just business or whatever, but like... Overwatch was going to be a success whether Battleborn did well or not. World of Warcraft was doing just fine with Final Fantasy XIV and other MMOs existing in the same space. I really hope the Breast Milk Thief Company goes under. Don't forget what they took from you. But I can tell you why their other games aren't doing so hot either. Yeah, Gearbox is a shitty CEO too, but if Activision Blizzard's still existing and Cyberpunk 2077's retroactive success should tell you anything, it's that not enough gamers actually care about morally questionable leadership. And while some of Gearbox's other games still do pretty well financially, they just don't have the same impact as Borderlands 2, that same it factor. They don't have Handsome Jack, one of the greatest video game villains of all time, and for once I'm confident no one will disagree with me on that. Sometimes when I'm talking about games or researching stuff about actual game theory, I always get kind of annoyed when people say stuff like games don't need to worry about story. Like, we've heard it time and time again. The story sucks, but the gameplay's great, and it's not like gameplay doesn't matter either, but a truly great game, one that you remember, is one where both of them are good. Hades, Celeste, Baldur's Gate 3. Tell me these games would be just as good if they phoned in the writing. I know that you have no choice, but I'm touched that you don't want to lie to me. Borderlands 2 just wouldn't be the same without Handsome Jack, and he was written perfectly for Borderlands 2. He's shit-talking you constantly to make it that much more satisfying to shoot him down, and the way he plays you like a fiddle is something you have no choice but to respect.
Alright, sweet. Found it. Alright, this is a song for Mordecai's Stupid Bird. Any. Oh, you what? Screw you. It would have been hilarious if I found it earlier. Shut up!
And if you don't respect it, it's because you're too busy being mad that he played you so well. And that's great, because you, as a player, have a personal motivation to beat his ass. Not only did he try to kill you, but he hurts everyone that you care about. Handsome Jack overachieves in everything that makes a villain fun to go against, served his purpose to the letter, and fell spectacularly from grace. Oh, I'm not talking about the fact that he dies, I'm talking about the fact that they brought him back and made him retroactively worse. Sorry, I think my tone was kind of misleading. Why? I wanted more of him, but not like this. You don't need to make Jack sympathetic. He's very clearly a monster. He's a funny monster, and it's weirdly just as fun to see him win as it is to see him lose. But he's still a monster. Adding all this extra shit doesn't just make him worse and inconsistent, but he takes other characters down with him. He was also a monster with standards, capable of love and trust, sometimes to a fault. Everyone loves talking about how great he is, and honestly, so do I, so I'm gunning for the best of both worlds here. When was he good? Why was he good? And how did they fuck up this perfect set of pixels so bad? If you've never played these games, here's some trigger warnings. These themes are pretty important to his characters, so while most of the time people give timestamps, I don't think this video will completely make sense without talking about these themes. So this is your one warning to just leave. 5, 4,
3, 2.
Borderlands 2 was the first time Handsome Jack showed his stapled mug in the series. It is also one of the best video games ever made, according to me. Even the opening cutscene that he's technically not even in is just blowing the fuck up with character. He doesn't say anything that isn't prepared in advance, so it really is nothing personal. Yet. It's mainly about showing the Vault Hunters and their cool powers, but it's also exposition for how much Handsome Jack wants you dead. The train's rigged with explosives and goons, both human and robotic, to show you that he will stop at nothing to see your blood on the pavement. Shortchanged Hero by The Heavy is their indie rock choice for this cutscene, an irony that isn't lost on me. The few lyrical songs in the Borderlands series aren't just picked because they sound cool, but because they relate to what's happening too. Like a good writer should do, even if it's a little on the nose sometimes.
This girl is on fire!
So this song is supposed to be about the harsh landscape of Pandora, right? Saying this ain't no place for no hero to call home, but this chorus implies a lot more than Pandora bad. You're greeted in Sanctuary with a welcome home from Angel, already pulling the strings and setting the idea in your head that you're not the hero of this story. Handsome Jack is. He says that in his very first line.
It's cute that y'all think you're the heroes of this little adventure, but you're not. Welcome to Pandora, kiddos.
But basic logic dictates that he's not the hero either. You're the main character, but if you somehow miss that, the game burns a lot of its first hours making sure you're fully aware of how shitty he is. The first line you get after that cutscene is great. Another dead vault hunter. Handsome Jack's been busy. And then you run into Hammerlock and he's been killing unarmed men, women, and children. It's been going out of style. And if that wasn't enough, there's a side mission teaching you about how much Jack revels in his madness. Handsome Jack doesn't just kill people because heroes have to make sacrifices. He does it because it's fun for him. And he's sick in the head.
Oh, you know what? I am so sorry. I just, forgive me. Where's your husband now?
He's dead.
That is a heartbreaker. But you got something in common with him now, at least.
I remember seeing this post, I think it was a tweet or whatever they're calling them in the apocalypse. It said something along the lines of, if the villain has a point, they always have to put in that they kick puppies and do all sorts of other horrible shit to remind the audience not to take their side. This tweet was made about Handsome Jack. His motive on the surface is that Pandora is a lawless and chaotic world that needs order. And he's right, I don't need to argue that point when the B-roll does it for me. Towns just operate like this, with everyone killing each other and no one having to face any consequences. Pandora is a batshit insane world where things like VAR kids are allowed to exist. I'm putting out a petition to outlaw all giant detailed bug enemies in video games unless it's a horror game because I cannot deal with this shit anymore. But yeah, you see what he means when he says it could do with a little order and peace. I'll elaborate later. All you need to know for now is Borderlands 2 suffers from jerkass has a point disease, or I guess jackass has a point disease. Sure, Handsome Jack isn't the hero. He kills tons and tons of people. But so do we. He's a manipulative dick that only recruits vault hunters to bait them to their death, but we manipulate bitches too. The clan war quest line, home movies, those are side quests. You can obviously just choose not to do them, but if you do, guess what? You're a shithead too. At least Handsome Jack can say it's for the greater good on a truly massive scale. He's lying, but there's a lot of observable truth to it, which makes it feel very believable. The reason why Short-Change Hero is so ironic for the opening cutscene is because there are no heroes in the Borderlands, at least not a pure figure of justice like what we expect when we think of what a hero is supposed to be. And this is kind of the core of what makes Handsome Jack such an interesting character to me. The narrative of a hero lets him justify anything. He's obviously insane, and to a degree he seems aware of it, but the hero complex makes it easy to trick himself and everyone else into thinking he's just having fun being a hero. Killing bad guys and making necessary sacrifices is really what his heroism is all about. His propaganda is important, not just from a personal sense, but a business sense too, selling that Hyperion is the side of the good guys. The corporatocracy angle of Borderlands as a whole is actually pretty interesting, and while I love to get into it, I need to get an associate's in political science first. And figure out what political science is. This propaganda is usually kind of tongue-in-cheek. Every time you come back from a major story mission, you can tap into Hyperion's radio to see how they twisted what you just did.
Handsome Jack, ever heroic and forward-thinking, tricked a particularly moronic bandit into breaching the city's defenses. Had it not been for Handsome Jack's incredible mercy, Sanctuary would have been utterly destroyed. Being the hero he is, however, Jack gave the city and its denizens one final chance to repent and join the Hyperion family. We'll be waiting for their response.
Angel tricked you? Actually, then Lilith pushed it somewhere else, and we all know repent means die. But we'll get to Angel later. More importantly, a hero needs a good image, especially when Jack sacrifices as much as he does. Hey, I'm back from DeVry! The only part where you really get confirmation that he's full of shit is when you get to Opportunity. Opportunity is meant to be Hyperion's flagship city to show the potential of corporatocracy on Pandora. It is to Handsome Jack what Epcot was to Walt Disney, complete with 1984 levels of dystopian propaganda to anyone that sits in it for more than 2 seconds.
Did you know that some people on this planet still believe in silly superstitions, like angels, demons, and ancient alien warriors? We like to call them bandits. Did you know littering in Opportunity is punishable by death? If not, you also ought to know complaining about Opportunity's laws is considered verbal littering.
God, I just love the way that Handsome Jack can set the tone of whatever scene he's in without even being in it. Again, all pre-recorded messages, and Opportunity visually isn't very unique from other places in the game. But his messages, along with the factory-like design, give this very dystopian feel. It's where it sets in that Handsome Jack's idea of order is straight-up dictatorship.
Hey kids, did you know what your mommies and daddies gave up so your family could live in Opportunity? Literally nothing! Your family is paid to be here. I'm the one who feeds and protects everyone. Remember, we should all love our parents, but love them more.
Borderlands 2 gets a lot of praise overall, and it's very well deserved, but something that feels really overlooked is how good its side missions are. If you want more story and world building, it's hard to miss. You kinda need some to get to the right level sometimes. I mean, you can get away with sticking to the main story, but your life is gonna be much harder. They had to put a lot of thought into these side missions so the grind felt less like a grind. Kill this boss sounds boring until you find out there's a bonus for killing him with a pistol. And then he drops an echo. What's this one all about?
Oh yeah, and since you shiverbrains evidently don't know how to listen, I'll say it again. Stop bringing in fake sirens. Only 6 sirens can exist in the universe at any given time, and I already know of 3. You're not going to convince me you happen to find one of the remaining 3 just by drawing blue tattoos on some random chick's corpse. Well, I will admit it was mildly amusing the first dozen times you idiots tried it, but now my office smells like blood and marker fumes. So quit it!
Who are the 3 he knows about? We know about Lilith and Maya, but who's the 3rd? If you play Borderlands 1, you know all about Steel, but she's dead. Like, super dead. Right? How does he know there's only 6? I normally gloss over this side mission, but it has such good foreshadowing, it's embarrassing. Even quests that don't give you story will give you a good laugh, like Face McShooty, who actually took a lot of thinking to implement. They had to figure out where to put him so players wouldn't miss him, and his entire quest is a joke, and a good joke needs good timing. If they put him in too early, players might think a lot of quests are just like this. If they put him in too late, it'd break the game's tone. Late game's Borderlands 2 is actually kinda dark, and if any joke were to detract too much from that, it just wouldn't hit as hard. Face McShooty is perfect because he fits the tone of that part of the story and breaks the expectations of the player without completely shattering them, and it's so short that some people who mostly ignored side quests up to this point might get more of an itch for them. If the jokes are that good, what else do they got?
I will pay you to yourself. I've got a perfect spot all picked out for you. And you don't want to? That's fine. Call the Hyperion Prevention Hotline and you'll get nothing. But if you want a huge reward, you jump off that cliff and become my bitch. Take your time. I guess you just yourself. Head back to the bounty board and I'll pay you. But, just one second. No matter what happens, I just want you to remember one thing.
Hyperion Corporation suggests...
Give yourself gets paid you to. You're a bitch. Alright. Off you go.
I fucking love this game, man. But yeah, right, side quests. They're important, and they help set the tone of Opportunity too. Written by the Victor does a really solid job of establishing Jack as a fucking dickweed, especially if you played Borderlands 1. If you haven't, don't worry, the game isn't afraid to set the record straight that he's a fascist dictator who tells lies. This game aged like a fine wine, it's kinda crazy. And honestly, if you've been paying any attention to the story up to this point, you already knew that. The original Vault Hunters killed the Destroyer. Handsome Jack straight up just took credit because he knew no one could disprove it. The laser on Helios used to be the Eye of the Destroyer, which makes it that much more believable. And it drops a little bit of extra context for how he knows Lilith and the gang, but we'll get to the pre-sequel when we get to it. Lynchwood is a full side quest town. You'll never need to go here, but if you decide to, you get to meet Nisha, who's Jack's girlfriend, and honestly, she's settling. But she's also crazy, so maybe they're perfect for each other. Opportunity might be the first official city, but Lynchwood was an anniversary gift to Nisha. Sure, he's rich, but a whole-ass city is still a massive gift to give to someone. And if you play as her in the pre-sequel, you realize that this sheriff thing is just something she's always been a fan of. It's not just a grand gesture, but a genuine and extremely thoughtful gift for her. The quest chain ends with you killing Nisha and Jack showing a rare crumb of humanity.
Well, did you actually just kill my girlfriend?
The beginning of something awesome.
Kind of pissing me off. Huh.
I am having, this is crazy, but I'm having feelings again. Like some kind of 14-year-old kid or something. I mean, you remember feelings, right?
Yeah, I have feelings every single day of my life.
Do you?
Are you saying you don't have feelings?
In the fashion of a psychopath, but he does care about her more than he even realized. Jack has a heart, and Angel is a much bigger part of it, which makes sense because she is his daughter. So, does anyone want to talk about
Separaya?
Another very iconic gamer villain. Some people might even say he's the most. Like Jack, he has a lot of presence throughout the game, but Sephiroth is more about the real threat that he poses, like one-shotting this thing that took you 87 years to kill. He just kind of leaves destruction everywhere, and you keep bumping into him at the library, so, you know, scary man. Like, yeah, sure, he's the villain or whatever, and we're supposed to stop him, but hey, what's going on? Hey, what's going on? Aerith meant everything to the player. Not only is she just a cool character, but she's also your best healer, and any smart player would have put a lot of time and energy into leveling her up. So if you weren't paying attention to the story for some reason, you're sure as shit paying attention now, because now it's personal. Angel, narratively, is a lot like Aerith. She's the first non-shithead who greets you. She's soft-spoken, patient, useful at times, and really feels like a guardian angel watching over you. It makes it heartbreaking when she betrays you, since she's just so hard to hate. I have vivid memories of screaming at my game when she stabbed you in the back, but even after that, she puts herself in a very real danger defying Jack to help you get back home. She's definitely not perfect, far from it. In that same mission, she cuts off the oxygen supply for like thousands of people, but she did that for you, which in this world feels pretty special. If you played Borderlands 1, there's a bit of extra attachment from her helping you in that game too, so when you kill Angel, there's so much overwhelming dread, because you, the player, really don't want to do this. Jack doesn't want you to do this, Roland and Mordecai and okay, maybe not Lilith.
If we're taking that bitch down, I'm coming. Trap or not.
Don't want you to do this, but Angel needs you to do this, because if we don't, not only does Jack win, but her suffering as his human battery never stops. The only thing worse than someone you care about dying in your arms is being the person that pulled the trigger.
I'm going after Jack.
Sup? Language.
What's that saying? Don't pick a fight with a man with nothing left to lose. See, I'm gonna show you just how much you have to lose, and I got the most powerful siren on the planet to do it with. Lilith, kill the Vault Hunter.
And just like that, it's personal. Handsome Jack stops being your problematic buddy that roasts you every time your aim is bad and starts becoming your enemy. There's no doubt anymore, knowing he made his own daughter that chemically dependent on iridium just to open a vault. It's not about the greater good anymore. It's not chaos versus order. It's about making sure Angel's death meant something. And for Jack, it's about avenging it. The game takes a very sharp tone shift after where Angel's veered to tread. You have no Angel watching over you. Roland is dead. Lilith tries to contact you, but she's being pumped so full of iridium it's hard to stay in touch with her. Mordecai is in grief over losing what's now 3 close friends. Jack is more seriously plotting your demise, and you're pretty much all alone. Mordecai tries, and while you're glad to hear him, it's just not the same. There's 2 side missions left centered around Jack. Get to know Jack, and to Grandmother's house we go. Get to know Jack is an echo-collecting side quest just like the one in Liarsburg where he kills everyone on that train, except while the one in Liarsburg is a short story, Get to know Jack is just a series of his greatest hits of being the worst. Well, not exactly. You do get a little window into his relationship with Angel, hard emphasis on little. I'll have more to say across the other games, but for now it's pretty clear that in these echoes, He sees Angel as someone to be used, not someone to be loved. And if he doesn't keep a constant eye on her and keep her constantly busy, she'll run away or end up in the wrong hands. He doesn't really talk to her like a daughter. He talks to her more like a secretary. The first echo is the most important, showing that this wasn't their dynamic until her mother's death. Wouldn't it be crazy if she accidentally killed her mom, and that's why her relationship with Jack took such a dark turn? I don't know, it's just a little theory I'm working on. His wife is obviously a sore subject, though. He does notably kill someone just for mentioning her.
With my watch chain, what I'm doing is actually referred to as strangling.
To grandmother's house we go is one that Jack gives you directly, which is interesting and immediately suspicious since this happens not too long after Angel's death. This is in the same area where Jack pays you to jump off a cliff, by the way. It's technically a trap, but not really. He wants you to check in on her, and she's dead. But that was the plan! He did hire someone to kill her, which sounds on the surface level like another Jack is insane and will kill anyone kind of side quest. But then you find this buzz axe, a disciplinary weapon used by Handsome Jack's grandmother. About as painful as it looks. Oh, he was abused. Like, brutally, he was abused. Yikes. And his grandma was most likely a psycho, since those are the only people we've ever seen use these things. With this kind of upbringing, you'd think he'd be even worse. So, honestly, go off for this one, King. Glad we know why he's evil now, and will not receive any further unnecessary explanation that will make everyone look like an asshole. Wink! Wink! Anyways, you kill him, and if that grandma quest made you feel any pity for him, it's alright. His final words will get rid of all of that.
I'm so close, and not at the hands of a filthy bandit! See, I could have saved this planet. See, I could have actually restored order. And I wasn't supposed to die by the hands of a child-killing psychopath! You're a savage. You're a maniac. You are a bandit, and I am the goddamn hero! You idiots! The warrior could have brought peace to this planet. No more dangerous creatures, no more bandits. Pandora, it could have been paradise!
A delusional asshole till the very end. I'll miss you, sweet prince. The fuck you mean ain't no rest for the wicked? He just slept. Don't touch that dial, though! His mask came right off, and what the fuck? That's the vault symbol, like the sign of the vault, what the warrior was standing on the what? What the fuck? Part 2, Borderlands Pre-2. Allegedly. I have very weird feelings about the pre-sequel. I got it for Christmas with no memory of putting it on my wish list. I don't think I played much Borderlands 2 at all before I got it, and from a gameplay perspective, it feels less like a new Borderlands game and more like DLC for Borderlands 2. So most people don't like it all that much. And like I implied at the beginning of this video, this game doesn't need to exist. We know why Jack is evil. If you were forced to live with your psycho grandmother who beats you with a buzzsaw, you'd take over the world too. She's probably why he saw his actions as so heroic, because there's not much difference between psychos and bandits, and with that in mind, if he kills every bandit, no one will go through that same crazy again. Handsome AI as a side mission gives us some extra context, but we didn't really need it.
Dad died pretty early. Mom pawned me off on her mom. Spent most of my time coding or getting smacked around. Had a cat. Grandma drowned it because it didn't make my bed. The usual stuff.
And yet here we are with Borderlands the Pre-Sequel, the game that dares to answer the question no one was asking. Unnecessary prequels can work, like Better Call Saul, but Better Call Saul is a masterpiece. Actually, it's a really good series to compare it to. Hold on. Better Call Saul is about a man who wants to turn his life around from being a con artist to being an extremely successful lawyer. At first, Jimmy wants to be a lawyer because inspired by Kim and Chuck, he seems to have genuinely good intentions at the beginning of the series, but they grow more corrupt over time because he realizes how much he enjoys and is consistently rewarded by a successful con. The Jimmy to Saul story works because you see what he's capable of in the story, and the foundations for becoming a criminal lawyer are very clearly laid out. It's not just a matter of giving into his own temptations, but the world enables him every step of the way. It is a slow, deliberate, and crystal clear transformation with an immense number of both external and internal factors. Handsome Jack, shit, comes out of fucking nowhere. He's on your side, and you can even see him fighting with you. While you're a contract hire, he still cares about you, as long as you're not playing Claptrap or Aurelia. But to be fair, I don't think they have souls, and his hero complex isn't a means of deluding himself into justifying his actions. It's a genuine and weirdly endearing character trait.
You're really staying? You'll likely die.
Now you saved my life a couple of times, I'm repaying you favor. Besides, I'm a hero, baby.
Self-sacrifice is part of the job.
Jack can still be a dick at times, and there are some seeds planted throughout the story, but overall, this Jack is just too easy to root for. He really is just a good guy in this. I wanted to see what people thought about Jack if they decided to go in completely blind playing the pre-sequel before too, and I couldn't find a damn thing. If you're out there, please, I encourage you to leave a long comment. I would genuinely love to hear your thoughts, because to me, the game is written with the expectation that you've played too, not just because some plot points don't make sense without it, but I fucked up. I meant the whole game doesn't make sense without it. Jack just doesn't have enough reasons to turn evil when he does. Yes, he gets stabbed in the back like 2 or 3 times, but with the exception of Moxxi, they shouldn't matter that much to him because he barely knows these bitches. And Moxxi is his ex-girlfriend, so he really should have seen that one coming. Don't worry. I'll get to this one later. I forgot who the Marif was before I started replaying it for this video, and I have over 400 hours in this game. Jimmy's first step into Saul was super early and felt like a genuine stepping stone whether you watch Breaking Bad or not. He is a lawyer with no notoriety, no wealth, his car hardly even runs, and he nearly gets used for insurance fraud. He realizes he can use the Paul brothers to fraud someone else and ends up frauding the wrong person. He almost gets them killed, but he manages to talk Tuco down into giving them broken legs, planting the idea that he is a brilliant lawyer who can talk down even the most insanely stubborn person. It feels impactful, and even though I only watched Better Call Saul once and the story never really touches on it again, I remembered it. I forgot who the Marif was, and I have over 400 hours in this game. Replaying it didn't even feel impactful. It just felt like it was being played for laughs, and if it laid the groundwork for anything, it was just how sadistic Jack is. And sadism is a meaningless character trait in the Borderlands universe. Everyone is a sadist. Moxxi, Janie, Brick, Gage, Athena, no matter who you're playing as or talking to, they all want to kill somebody, and they mean it when they say it. I'm not saying everyone in Borderlands is evil. In fact, I'm kind of saying the opposite here. I'm saying that sadism is not a factor for anyone's moral compass in this universe. If the murder was without motivation, this might have worked, but they fucked up and gave him a very good reason to kill the Marif.
What are you gonna do with me? Nothing. I was just messing with you. Get the hell out of here. I've been thinking, there's a way back to Helios. I surrender.
I was gonna let you live, dumb bastard! What is wrong with you?
This guy is full of shit. Why would Jack believe him when he said he surrendered? The way they got to this conversation was because the Marif lied to him. He hid that he was working for Dahl, he broke his own laws and fucked a robot he wasn't allowed to. He is the law here and just attempted to murder Jack. If he doesn't kill him now, who says he won't try again later because he's not going to face any other consequences for his actions? Jack is completely justified in what's supposed to be his first step towards being the bad guy. There is a point where it stops being crazy and starts looking like self-defense, because that's what it is. In Borderlands 2, again, when they were trying to convince you Handsome Jack is evil, they were very deliberate. While they told you he's a sadist in the beginning, they wanted to make it clear that his sadism is on a different level from yours. He kills innocents, refugees, unarmed men, women, and children like it's been going out of style. His sadism is out of a very obvious cruelty. A self-aware cruelty that he does everything in his power to blind himself to, but everyone's a sadist, so the cruelty is all that matters and gets registered to the player. So ignoring the sadism with the Marif, this shows Jack is an impulsive but relatively pragmatic person who did try to hold himself back. Like he said, he was gonna let him live. Seeing the Marif piss his pants, he reasonably assumed that he got his point across and wouldn't be doing it again. The second he proved him wrong, and in this case by attempting murder, yeah, he's gonna kill him. He gave him enough chances. And killing someone who tried to kill you doesn't make you a bad person. You could argue that Jack is paranoid, but in this situation, what other choice did he have? Give him another chance? Get his ass, Vault Hunter? They just said they wouldn't torture him.
I'll meet you in Concordia. Need to have a talk with this guy.
I'm not torturing anyone for you, Jack.
Calm down, we're not gonna hurt him till we find out what the deal is.
Part 2A. Zarpedon. Another major problem with Jack, besides the fact that none of his betrayals really feel real, is the fact that Jack's motivations are very pure and uncomplicated in this story. Zarpedon's actions make absolutely no sense. Her whole motivation is stopping Jack from becoming the unstable monster the Guardians told her he's destined to be, from my and pretty much any other player's understanding. So she sieges Helios and tries to kill him. That's fine. The beginning of the pre-sequel is, at first, the most comprehensible part of it. What I don't understand is why, while sieging Helios, she tries to blow up the moon with its fat fucking laser. Is she holding Elpis hostage? She never says anything along the lines of, Jack, surrender. Only your sacrifice will stop my wrath. It feels like a desperate smear campaign against Hyperion until you find this ever so missable optional series of echoes.
I thought we were going to be left in peace. But then came those survey people, and now Zarpedon's told us about Hyperion's plans, the greedy bastards. They're knocking on our door, and there's no way we can let them have what they want. We protect the universe now. I just wish it knew that.
Optional echoes, for those that don't know, are exactly what they sound like. Optional. I hardly brought them up because they just didn't matter and didn't have many details that you needed to further understand Jack, and the ones that do are marked in side quests that are marked on the map and don't impact your understanding of the story. I didn't need to know about Jack's grandma beating him to find out why he's evil. Jack is perfectly fine as evil because he wants power. I didn't need to know about how long Angel has been in her position and get to know Jack. She already called it a lifetime of servitude. And even without this context, the main story of Borderlands 2 is still crystal clear. Get to the vault before the bad guy does because he plans on using it for bad things. These doll echoes are unique because without them, roughly 70% of the main story and pre-sequel makes zero sense, and with them, the other 30% makes even less sense. Apparently, Hyperion was already checking out the vault on Elpis. Never mentions that, not once in the main story quest. In the beginning, Tacitor talks to Jack about what Hyperion is there for.
Need I remind you that you are there to observe Pandora, nothing more. If you incur any damages to the Helios space station, I will personally...
Sorry, sir, we're losing connection. Sorry. Asshole.
What?
I called you an asshole because I thought I'd hung up. My bad.
So with this context, Athena's prologue, Borderlands 2 existing, and this game's title being Borderlands the pre-sequel, you assume that Jack hired the Vault Hunters to get into the Vault of the Warrior, not the Vault of the Watcher. The Vault on Elpis isn't even brought up until you face Zarpedon directly. The fact that this could have been fixed in one... If Zarpedon just said one line about how we won't allow Hyperion's excavations and Elpis's vault to bear fruit, or this knowledge is too great for Hyperion, no, the universe to uncover, or Jack said anything about Hyperion already looking at the vault, or even if the echoes were just put into a side quest instead of hidden, that'd be enough for me. Or even better, they take out her opening line where she calls Jack by name.
Hello, Jack.
Because when she says that, it makes it sound like she's after Jack specifically, and he's part of some prophecy, and it makes her zapping the moon nonsensical. It's still very stupid when she's supposed to be a guardian, and her way of protecting the vault is by destroying it, but whatever. I got so off course because of this. I stopped playing for like a month because this made me so angry. Okay, back to part 2. Even with all that cleared up, Jack is still in the right here. It is never about the vault when he talks, it is only about the safety of everyone that lives on that moon. Even when you get back on Helios, it's all he talks about. Yeah, he hires a vault hunter because he's looking for a vault, but if that's really what mattered to him, he hired you to hunt a vault. You'd think he'd say something along the lines of, once this is taken care of, we can get back on track to finding the vault, or someone would say, I better get paid extra for doing this, save the moon crap, it's out of my job description. Like, straight up, it's almost never talked about except for some generic talk from Lost Legion mobs. There's an argument that could be made that he thinks that she's the handsome Jack of Borderlands 2, meaning that finding Zarpedon is the key to opening the vault. It wouldn't be the first time one of his hunches just happened to be right, but considering he hired you to hunt a vault, you'd think he'd say that at some point. When Jack talks about order and peace in Borderlands 2, you can tell he's full of shit. Not just because of opportunity, but also Damien Clark's performance. Every time he brings up order and heroic virtues, it's in a very sarcastic and hand-wavy tone.
Sometimes I need independence. You're so unburdened with things like intelligence, culture, morality, honor, ambition, good looks. I could go on, but I won't. But I could. Dignity! I almost forgot to mention dignity! Easy, Blood Stallion. Easy. Grinder.
He doesn't take you seriously, he doesn't take his facade very seriously, and that's because his eyes are on the prize. When Jack talks about saving Elpis, he is painfully sincere.
Yeah, so, not good. Zarpedon's troops have taken control of the Eye of Helios. It's a big frickin' laser in the heart of the space station. She's targeting the moon's core. Try not to panic, but, she's trying to blow up Elpis. Zarpedon, cut it the hell out! You got a problem with Hyperion, that's one thing, but there are innocent people on Elpis, you asshole!
There's a very real passion and determination, and you honestly just forget about the vault. His excitement with the idea of making a robot army and recruiting an all-star team to get back control of the Eye is so endearing and infectious. You just get kinda caught up in his fantasy, you know, because helping people feels good, and Jack just has a natural charisma that I can't put into words. Like, he's by no means a great guy or someone you'd even want to be friends with, and that charisma is highly subjective, but you just want to watch what he does at a party, you know? I could put him in a fish tank and study him. Yeah, let's go with that. I think the Felicity arc was also supposed to be a step towards villainy, but Felicity is not a human being. She is an artificial intelligence that we met like 5 minutes ago. If Felicity was an actual human being that we were rescuing, and she was like Reese in Tales from the Borderlands, who had the AI installed into her brain, then this part of the story would be significantly more effective. There's even a painful degree of self-awareness that this would have been the better option with the way she talks about getting put into the constructor.
I've been wondering about this installation. You know, you could just copy me. It takes a little longer, but it's the same thing, and I'd find it much less terrifying.
Exactly how much less terrifying?
It's the difference between brain surgery and being scanned.
Let me think about it.
It'd be even better if she was still capable of all the control of these remote doll systems like Angel is with Hyperion, because parallels, but they didn't want to make and animate another 3D model. I get it. It doesn't change the fact that her literally not being human significantly downplays the heroes have to make sacrifices angle that they were definitely going for in this part. It's not like an emotional attachment to AI is impossible, and I know Borderlands writers are really good at that. Even though you spend like 70% of the game made to believe that Angel is artificial intelligence, you still get attached to her because you have so much time with her, and she does so much for you to build that bond. Felicity, to her credit, is extremely likable and does a lot for you, but the story just doesn't let her shine anywhere near enough. It's too short. You get her for 2 story missions, and that's it. And one of those missions, they don't even let her do her thing for a good chunk of it. They spend a lot more time making you feel bad for her, and not enough time giving you something to feel bad for. Good writing and likability can only get you so far with building an attachment to a character. You need time, too, and that's the other problem with pre-sequel. Characters go in and out of a revolving door, never there long enough for you to care when Jack inevitably kills them. The only time Jack kills someone where it genuinely feels senseless and like a level of overreacting is when he airlocks all those scientists. Note how I said level and not completely batshit insane. The Marif almost killed him! If there's even a chance of a mole being among them, while this is stupid, reckless, and lazy, you haven't been around these people long enough to care about the risk. Jack hasn't had enough time to shake off that paranoia. I really don't agree with his approach at all. I do think there was enough time to investigate, or if he didn't think so, there were just more ethical ways to solve this problem. For example, the lie that he gave them to get them into the airlock.
We're gonna head off and shut it down, but I'm gonna summon my personal escape ship to get you guys the hell out of here.
But again, I get it, and I can still sympathize with him this late in the story. At this point, Dahl has had control of the Eye for a really long time. The closer you get to the end, it makes sense that he'd make more rushed and irrational decisions. This entire plot being the impetus that makes Jack evil was just a horrible idea. It's great on paper. Handsome Jack uses his hero complex as justification for doing terrible things. Where did that come from? Actually being a hero at some point. I get it, I really do, but they're mistaking the people he kills as stepping stones when it should be the people he saves. The pre-sequel is completely missing the ego element of stories like this, which feels like an impossible mistake to make when a body double is a playable character who he constantly flirts with. In Better Call Saul, Jimmy started as a hero. The first time was fake, but still got his name out there and a massive ego boost to go with it. The Sam Piper class action lawsuit, while giving him a lot of money, would also help a lot of people. He didn't even look into it because of the money. He was genuinely concerned about a client. I never got the impression in Borderlands 2 that Handsome Jack is evil because he's paranoid. Paranoia doesn't make you a bad person. It can make you irrational, but it doesn't make you evil. My impression was that Handsome Jack is evil because power corrupts, and he's a control freak. He forces Angel into her chair because he knows what she's capable of and wants to control her power. He kills Tacitor because he's the only shareholder that won't give Jack full control of the company. And honestly, he was just kind of a dick. Boarding Party is a really great side mission to solidify the idea that Jack wasn't always bad. His rapport with Angel doesn't have that cold CEO and secretary vibe they have in Borderlands 2.
You're fighting against its basic programming. You need to work with his idiocy, not against it.
That's actually a really good idea. Thanks, baby. Love ya.
He should have destroyed that thing when he had the chance.
Murdering public officials? No. That sounds like a bandit to me.
The officials in question were bandit leaders who murdered their way into positions of power. The cities were one step above bandit camps.
Oh, so she's like a bandit that kills other bandits? Nice. Is she, seeing anybody? Why?
I don't...
I've pumped every freaking ounce of iridium I've got into you, but this stupid key isn't working. Why?
I'm sorry, I don't know.
You're a siren. You're one of a kind. Now make it work. I want that freaking warrior, Angel. I want him quick, okay? I want him under my control now. I want him now. Not later, now! Okay, any candidates today, Angel?
There are 4 treasure hunters who arrived on a shuttle several hours ago. They are currently on a bus to Firestone.
Great. Say this to them. Don't be alarmed. I need you to stay calm and don't let on that anyone is talking to you. Start making your way off the bus.
The bus is still moving, sir.
Shut up. Tell them.
You see what I mean, right? In Borderlands 2, it's all Jack's ideas and Jack's plans with no interest in hearing what Angel has to say. In pre-sequel, Jack lets Angel speak. She can offer her own ideas and extra context for stuff. Jack doesn't just listen, but he appreciates her input too. They actually feel like a team in this, and it's weirdly kind of nice to hear. Ignore the fact that chronologically Boarding Party had to have happened after that echo, okay? I'll get to that one mission in Borderlands 3. I haven't gotten to it yet, but hopefully that explains everything and we will all be surprised and happy about it. I got bigger fish to fry because I haven't even talked about his breaking point yet.
Reboot sequence activated. Command controls reset. Rebooting in 5, 4, 3, 2. Shutdown aborted. Invalid energy configuration.
Oh, great. What now?
Jack, I'm sorry.
I'm not. Warning. Singularity detected.
Whoa! What the hell?
Good job, everybody.
What, Moxxi? What the hell are you doing?
Betraying you. Trying to kill you. 2 things I should have done a long time ago, you power-hungry psychopath.
What do you mean, Moxxi? How did you even...
I've been watching you, Jack. And behind that smile, behind that hero complex, there's something wrong about you. If you come down from Helios alive, a lot of decent people will live to regret it.
No! Damn it, I trusted you, Moxxi! Do you know what you've done? You just killed us all!
Part 2B. Moxxi's a little bit of a bitch. Alright, let me explain a theory I have. I mentioned earlier that Moxxi is his ex-girlfriend, and he should have seen her backstab coming from a mile away. I didn't get too far into it because I figured context was important. So, what's the context? According to Borderlands 2, Jack did not break up with Moxxi, Moxxi broke up with him, and as revenge, he blew up her not-so-underground fighting arena. Because God forbid women do anything. It's referenced multiple times in Borderlands 2 side quests, mainly by her and Mordecai because he's canonically considered the winner of the Underdome, and this raises a very important question. Who shot first? Because if this betrayal came before the Underdome blowing up, Moxxi is a horrible person who lied to everyone to make herself look better, and this is her revenge on him for, I don't know, taking the breakup better than she thought. In Rackaholics Anonymous, she says,
Hey, until he set all those people on fire, Jack seemed like a pretty nice guy.
and if her reason for breaking up with him is because he's a little sadistic, she's a huge hypocrite. She ran a murder coliseum! For fun!
So Moxxi tried to kill Jack? She never told me that.
She's got layers, like an onion made of boobs.
Mordecai isn't in the pre-sequel at all up until this point, and you gotta admit, if Jack blew up the Underdome before Moxxi blew up the Eye, it's really weird for her not to say anything about it. Even weirder for Roland and Lilith not to tell him, but if she blew up the Eye and tried to kill Jack before he blew up the Underdome, it makes a lot more sense not to say anything. Because that's a really bad look. Roland and Lilith seem to be in on it, so maybe I'm crazy for saying that it's possible that Jack didn't actually do anything to her. Maybe I'm insane for pointing out that Jack is still a programmer who doesn't have enough corporate clearance to waste that much of Hyperion's capital to blow up some nobody bandit camp on what is to them nothing more than a potential place of interest. Maybe I'm giving the writers too much credit for setting up Moxxi as a snake in Rackaholics Anonymous and Borderlands 2, and finally following through with it in this game, ignoring the fact that Tales from the Borderlands follows up on Handsome AI, so this wouldn't be the only time they did this, but, like, that's just my theory, dude! It's just a theory, a game theory. Maybe I'm grasping at straws and I just want his breakdown to make a lick of sense, because if he blew up her Underdome, why would he trust anything she had to say? Even if I'm totally wrong about this, and this is just a pointless rabbit hole I ended up digging, Moxxi still tried to kill 4 completely uninvolved parties because of a stupid hunch, and then the game went around to demonize Jack for doing the exact same thing.
Alright, that's good. Now see where that takes you. I surrender! I give up! Of course he does. Now kill him. Why? He really thought we were gonna let him go. He was like, I'm gonna turn my life around and eat better and finish my novel and stuff. Then, boom! What a dumbass! That's good stuff.
I'm sorry.
What the fuck? Look, I'm not saying Moxxi had to treat Jack like a human being after breaking up with him. I'm not assuming that Jack did everything right and Moxxi broke up with him for no reason. But I am saying that this was super shitty and hypocritical no matter which way you look at it. I know no one in Borderlands is a good person, but like, hot tip? If you're going to make your villain sympathetic, don't do it by making me hate a well-established and enjoyed character. I support women's wrongs. Lae'zel is my favorite companion. I love Moxxi, but this is really testing my faith. If this was for the Underdome, take out the murder, and this would have been totally fine. You'd barely even have to change the dialogue.
Whoa! What the hell?
Good job, everybody.
What, Moxxi? What the hell are you doing?
Hey Jack, remember my Underdome, the one you destroyed?
What do you mean, Moxxi? How did you even—
An eye for an eye, you fucking jackass!
It's just one of those days where you don't want to wake up. Everything is fucked. Everybody sucks.
It'd be kind of funny, line up with their characters, and actually better communicate the idea that Jack always had it in him to be a monster. This tantrum would be played correctly as petty and childish, which are flaws in line with Handsome Jack. If he didn't waste so much time fucking with you in 2, he might have actually won. Yeah, this is still a shitty thing for Moxxi to do, but it's karma. And it's not out of line with her character or Lilith's. They've done more for less. If this was just based on a hunch that there's something wrong with him, go back to the Zarpedon section. It makes it even more infuriating that this isn't foreshadowing for some Iridian prophecy. Iridians and Guardians are apparently different. I'm sorry, a Guardian prophecy. I totally thought that it was supposed to call back to that first time I played this game, but no. I'm gonna have war flashbacks, we gotta move on. Before we get into Tales, I just want to make sure we're all on the same page here. Handsome Jack has a very tragic backstory, being stabbed in the back and abused by his grandmother, but it does not change the fact that he used his daughter as a human battery and planned to raise an entire planet for his own ego. An explanation is not an excuse. Being a victim doesn't change the fact that he's an abuser. Most abusers are victims. Okay, now we can move on.
Oh, I like them a lot. Oh, Reese, you're my hero.
I forgot about this.
Your fly is down.
No, it's not.
You know I can't be contained by
Just forget about that you're looking forever.
Part 3. Tales from the Borderlands, baby! So conceptually this game sounds kinda weird, right? A franchise known mostly for its gameplay to the point it kind of defined a genre being adapted into a Telltale game? I really don't like Telltale, man. Even ignoring all the controversy with how they closed their studio, their games just piss me off. Player choice is really important to me when it comes to the games that I play. To me, it's what makes a game a game. Borderlands 2 might not have any strong branches that change the flow of the story, but I can still choose who I'm going to play as, what skin they're going to wear, what side quests I'm going to play, what weapons I'm going to use, if I find the ones that I want. So even though the main story doesn't change, my experience still feels unique, and that's why games as an art form are so important to me. They're the only kind of art that is a different experience every single time, unless you're a Telltale game. Which would not even be a major issue to me if it weren't for the fact that choices matter is the first thing you see in everything that they make. You can't just say that when it feels so blatantly untrue. It's so easy to miss in most of their games, at least from the ones that I played. Walking Dead Season 1 specifically comes to mind because the writing is so damn good. And throughout the game, to its credit, you do make sacrifices and choices that make the game feel different. Kenny will treat you differently if you treat him and his family like shit, but he will still invite you to go with him on his boat because the impact can't be that big. Saving Doug or Carly in episode 1 also feels important because a character dies, and sometimes they'll do different things. It doesn't feel as meaningful when you go to the wiki and realize that like 90% of their entries in each episode are shared with each other, meaning that they largely do the same thing, just with a different personality. Most choices in Walking Dead are like this, actually, but in the moment, you don't really notice it, because the writing is really fucking good. The illusion of choice gets kind of a bad rap. It isn't a bad thing, as long as the player can't call out the illusion. It helps avoid feature creep and can save the development team a ton of time. But from a player perspective, when you can call it out, especially when a game's core mechanic is choice, and the game starts off with choices matter, and the game keeps giving you tooltips that don't actually mean anything to try and hammer in that illusion, it just feels bad. It's even worse when I can point to games with smaller budgets and the same core mechanic where my choices actually matter, but this isn't a review or an Uchi-Kochi circle jerk, nor do I really want to address the fact that Telltale usually adapts other IPs, and wants to have as many IPs under their belt as possible, so to an extent the company usually feels less interested in making something artistic and more interested in consistency and profit. That's a possible video for another day. In Tales, if you make the wrong choices, the illusion is painfully obvious. And that's the last thing you want when you're trying to pull off the illusion of choice. For example, in episode 2, you have the option to tell Vaughn that Handsome Jack decided to move into your skull. I chose not to. Later, in that same episode, when you're being walked down the hall by Vasquez, you have the option to tell him. I chose to, and this is how Jack responded.
I got help from Handsome Jack.
Oh, so we're telling everyone now. Is that what we're doing?
I have not told anyone else in this playthrough. I haven't told Fiona, or Sasha, or anyone else. This sass is totally unwarranted. I plan out visual novels and interactive stories and all kinds of games like this in my free time, actually. high. I get that branching paths and remembering minor choices can be really hard to keep consistent, especially for something episodic like Tales, but in this case, there is literally no excuse. I know for a fact that the decision to tell Vaughn is being tracked, so you do not have to make a new variable for this. Old Telltale games used to tell you percentages for how many players made what choice, but I'm just gonna assume that the company going under deleted the servers. Not every episode has the same team of writers, but again, this choice is in the same episode. It would have added one if-else statement for a binary choice that is already being tracked. I know there's also voice recording and animation and potential bugs that could sprout from this, but you're the one that said choices matter, and the game is already really buggy as is, and in episode 4, where you give the tour, you don't really get any change in dialogue at the end if you get everything right. The way the pacing abruptly changes makes it feel like it should. Why even give me the option to be right if these goons are gonna say I got it wrong no matter what? Anyways, you play interchangeably as Reese and Fiona, but mostly Reese. Handsome Jack has left an irreversible impact on the company he killed his way to the top of because now everyone does it. Reese hasn't yet, but it'd be really cool if he did. Maybe something symbolic like killing the ghost of the CEO, the biggest killer, the guy who did it all, and the very man that inspires him the most to show him how much he's grown, but that's just a theory. A game theory. I'm full of them. Like, comment, subscribe for more game theory. But Reese and his friends have made a lot of sacrifices to bring him up to the top. It's not really specified, but you can guess enough.
Look, we had to do a lot of awful stuff to get you to this point. Do I regret some of it? Sure I do. Every night it haunts my dreams, but that doesn't matter now, because you made it. You deserve this, man. And don't ever think you don't. And don't ever think about the Iridium mine deal we put together.
Thanks for the help, Vaughn. Really. I couldn't have done this without you and Yvette.
Hey man, don't sweat it. I'm just happy we even got you here. You know, I crunched the numbers one night and figured out there was a 45% chance someone would kill you before this day.
Glad that didn't happen.
And surgery sucks. Even if you want it. That robot arm and echo eye and brain port must have been a nightmare to go through and recover from. And it still kind of sucks afterwards because Vaughn says he gets glitches. Speaking of which.
So, how are things? Still alive, I see. Well done. Just a quick question for you both. Where the hell is Reese?
Last I heard, he was in your old office.
Trust me, Cupcake, he ain't in there. Otherwise, I'd be inside him.
So, like, I'm sorry. I didn't expect this to happen, but here's the part where I accidentally make this a little bit about shipping. So you'll be pleasantly surprised that I haven't engaged with the Borderlands fandom in over 6 years. Therefore, I have very little, if anything, in the realm of fandom interpretation sullying my view. I like Borderlands with just about the most independent perspective humanly possible, with the only thing influencing my opinion being my other friends who also happen to like Borderlands. So with this knowledge in mind, Reese and Jack kind of rule. I think their shipping name is Rhack, but I don't like calling them that because that's these things. Jeese is funnier. Do better. Let me make something clear. This is not a Yuri and Victor kind of relationship. It's full Will and Hannibal toxic yaoi, and it was never really set up to be anything better than that. Reese idolizes Jack just like everyone else in Hyperion, and you know what they say, never meet your heroes. Especially when that hero is an abusive mass murderer with erectile dysfunction. Even more if that hero is now stuck in your brain and will not leave you alone. Big red flag if they take direct control of your body and act without your consent. But I still think their relationship is really interesting. They just have a lot in common and work really well together. They both have these huge egos that can lead to them being kind of dorky. They're both assholes. They both had to deal with their shitty coworkers pushing them around and abusing their corporate position for personal reasons. They're both some version of programmer. Jack was definitely an engineer. Reese, they never directly tell you what he does beyond middle manager, but he does have his own executable and goes to hackathons, and I want to shove Reese into a locker so bad it's embarrassing. You can't just call your shit reesewins.exe unless you want to drown in a toilet bowl, you fucking nerd. They really do a great job in making their relationship fun to watch. I will admit that I remember their friendship having a much less sinister undertone, because moments like their time on the roof of the car and Hail to the King just stuck to me much more than the times when Jack was being a dick, because Jack is always a dick, so the times when he softens up just stand out a lot more. And Tales is one of those stories within stories where Reese and Fiona take turns telling it from their perspectives to the stranger that kidnapped them. Every time one of these good times happen, Reese gets questioned for it, or Reese visibly regrets putting his trust in Jack, wondering how he could have stabbed him in the back in spite of all the fun they had and how well they got along. This is actually a pretty good game to replay if you already know what's going to happen, because you have a much better understanding of Reese and Fiona's perspectives. It's easier to empathize with their regret and frustration, especially Reese. My first thesis for this game and why I considered sort of ruining a perfect character was Jack's betrayal, because a lot like his breakdown in pre-sequel, it came out of fucking nowhere. Now, when this becomes a trend, it could be argued that this is actually a form of characterization. Jack is a volatile and unstable person, which makes sense if you're just looking at the pre-sequel and nothing else. But Tales actually has a pretty clear show of Jack warming up to Reese. Yes, at the beginning, he tries to strangle him. Even if you trust him at the end of episode 2, he thanks you by giving you control of the shittiest robot in the building. In episode 3, he completely takes control of Reese's body so Troy Baker could show off his Jack impression. Speaking of which, oh my god, it's so good. These actions are all on track with the Jack we know and love. He would totally do all of this, and having those moments in between where he shows genuine concern and adoration is a very common behavior pattern for abusers. Angel even tells you directly that this is the way Jack manipulates people in the quest for your killer. However, the really unfortunate thing about abuse is the fact that it's genuinely rare for the abuser to be aware of what they're doing. Most abusers don't make a conscious effort to say, I'm going to gaslight my daughter today. It just happens. That doesn't justify their actions or make them okay, but it's just the reality of the situation. Abusers usually think that they're in the right and are acting with the understanding that this is how you're supposed to treat your loved ones, and it's usually a learned behavior either due to their friends or their caretakers conditioning them into believing that. We already know that this is the case for Jack. Even if you didn't play any of the side quests that reaffirmed this, Jack's behavior during and after Angel's death kind of tells you everything. He truly thought that he was acting with Angel's best interests in mind. He knows what people do to sirens. The Borderlands don't treat them like humans. They treat them like gods to be feared and bowed down to. He even lost a second wife because she was so afraid of what Angel was capable of. Jack definitely saw her power as an asset and likely used it to climb the corporate ladder, but I don't think Jack realizes that that's what he's doing. Angel is his daughter who accidentally killed her mother and his wife. If he doesn't constantly keep an eye on her, she might hurt herself or kill him next, and then she wouldn't have anyone to look after her anymore. While Hyperion is a weapons manufacturer, he always calls them the good guys. I bet he genuinely thought that she'd be safer and better off as his assistant, and her affinity for tech just happened to benefit him in that way. Again, it doesn't justify his actions. I'm just saying that even though the way Jack treats Reese is extremely toxic, that toxicity comes from a genuine feeling of companionship. I thought it was really interesting when I told my friend that I was making this video, and he told me that even though he hates Jack, he still decided to work with and trust him in episode 4. He gave him the cold shoulder throughout the rest of the game, but getting stabbed in the back still felt like a surprise. So I mainly wanted to make the majority of my decisions about the same from when I first played this game like 8 years ago. I think I deviated a little bit, but generally speaking, I wanted to keep them the same. And the last choice you get in episode 4 is to reject or rule Hyperion with Jack's help, obviously. And I said yes. You know how Telltale games have QTEs and people talk over your decisions sometimes? This had both of those, so I picked rule Hyperion, and then it gave me a QTE to plug the Jack into Reese's brain port without a timer. I just realized how horny that sounded. That wasn't intentional. And I wanted to see what Jack had to say since I thought I had all the time in the world, but because I took too long, the game registered me as rejecting Hyperion anyways. This would be a really cool detail if I wasn't making a video about 3 different games. Credit where it's due, the tonal shift and the effect that they do with Jack taking over all of your choices is really cool. On the downside, it does further cement my point that it's very easy for the betrayal to feel like it's coming out of nowhere, and just because something is unexpected doesn't mean it's good. I think everyone who likes Borderlands understands that Handsome Jack is not a completely heartless being. He is a psychopath, but not incapable of love and friendship, just a person that shows those feelings in extremely harmful ways. But he would never be this harmful to someone that he cared about. Even though the power got to his head and completely ruined his relationship with Angel, it's not like he would have been willing to kill her to further his goals. Her death and switching to Lilith as the battery made it feel like the vault key charged way faster. Could be argued that the vault key was already mostly charged, but I like to believe in the idea that Lilith isn't his daughter, so he was more willing to push her way past normal limits for a siren.
Who's this?
Oh, yeah, that's my Angel. Don't usually like people knowing about her, but you and me are pretty tight. Once we're done with all this vault stuff, I'd like to check up on her. That's cool.
While Jack used Angel's kind and trustworthy nature to manipulate the Vault Hunters, he never risked anyone actually seeing her. He never told anyone about her. He didn't even want people knowing that she's a physical being, not just to keep up the AI ruse, but also because he didn't want to risk anyone touching her. Jack would only talk about Angel with employees who work directly under him or people he trusts with his life. During her quest, the closer you get to her, the less humans you fight. When you get to the bunker and control core Angel, there isn't a single Hyperion employee in sight. And that's because he doesn't trust anyone. The fact that he's willing to tell Reese anything about her is a massive deal. Angel is a lot of things to Jack, but she isn't bait. Reese is obviously nowhere near the same level as Angel, but their dynamic just felt a lot more meaningful than one between a boss and his goon. It's between two nerdy assholes who want to show the world what happens when you mess with the little guy. The strongest and most dangerous duo the world could ever ask for. Two mildly competent programmers.
Alright, now the one problem was how to get the endoskeleton into my body without killing me first. But since I'm dead anyway, I had a way cooler idea. Are you ready for this? This is awesome. We make a shitload of these endoskeletons, we put them into the corpses of the bandits we killed, and then we upload my AI into all of them.
You want to make an army of Jacks?
Freaking awesome, right? I mean, Hyperion troops die in battle, grab the corpse, shove an endoskeleton into it, boom, another Jack. Some asshole gives you lip, boom, jackpot. Successfully wipe out a bandit camp, you turn the corpses into more Jacks. Within a few months, Hyperion would have the smartest, best looking fighting force in the universe. And the best part is, Reese, baby, you're gonna be the first recipient. Huh?
You're allowed to disagree with me and say that Jack was playing the long con. You can totally say that Jack was trying to make the best of a bad situation. If, for whatever reason, you don't see what I see in their relationship and or you see this betrayal as totally in character, that's fine. What I won't yield on are the logistics of this betrayal and how uncharacteristically stupid it makes Jack look. Remember when I said I make visual novels? That's relevant, again, because I program my own games and talk to other game developers and designers and programmers. My day job is QA for games. I know how programmers think, and I know how big tech projects work. I have played over 800 hours of Borderlands content. I know this bitch so well that I know his favorite color. It's yellow. Handsome Jack loves himself more than anything in the world, and he doesn't show it, but he is very self-aware. So believe me when I say he would never want to create an army of himself. He fears death more than anything, and that's why he hires body doubles instead of creating androids. If there were an army of Jacks, he would lose. He reaffirms the stupidity of his own plan, both leading up to and after his betrayal.
Did I build it with... No. Jack doesn't do manual labor.
I built this station. I hired the guards, and calling them in to kill people is like my favorite thing.
Sure, test the technology on another body instead of your own to make sure it's stable. I get that. How many dead Hyperion guards are lying around on Pandora again? Probably like a billion. Just yoink one of those, and if it works, great. If it doesn't, back to the drawing board. Or if he really sees his guards as that expendable, just kill a guard on the station. Best thing about this AI situation is that he's got all the time in the world, and the space station is full of people that worship the guy. They'll do anything for him. Just don't use the guy who, if you played like me, was nothing but kind and forgiving up to this point. This other point is a bit of a nitpick, and might even be a plot hole? So rewind a bit. In pre-sequel, their justification for moving Felicity's AI instead of just copying it was that it'd take too long. While that feels a little hand-wavy, It's not incorrect. Even though these days people make AI look easy, that's because it's not real AI. Real AI is complicated programming that has to account for a near infinite number of variables. It's why fake AI these days just copy what they see online. It's a lot easier and faster than manually creating and constantly updating. So I understand why Jack couldn't just copy himself into Helios and leave a version of himself in Reese as insurance. What I don't understand is why there's only one copy of Jack's AI. Ask any programmer, any project with no backup through flash drives, clouds, repositories, GitHubs, multiple computers. If you don't have your files saved in a minimum of 2 different places, you deserve to lose your code. Jack has the programming know-how to make the file as difficult to crack into as possible if paranoia was the issue here. They spend the majority of episode 4 proving that to you. If it wasn't in there for some reason, Jack has the patience and basic common sense to let the con play out for a little bit longer to upload a copy of himself onto some other file in Hyperion's database while Reese isn't looking. The only thing he loves more than vaults is himself, and if it means risking losing out on the spoils of one vault, I can confidently say that he would take that extra time. It could even be an interesting bit of potential character development if he worked with Reese to help him rebuild the Atlas Corporation, and Reese was the one that invited him to look for more vaults. I just think it's really interesting how much a video game gets wrong writing-wise about programming. I get that not all writers have every human experience under their belt, but you're working with programmers. Just go to the next cubicle and ask. I mentioned earlier that I knew these teams got shifted and moved around and changed for each episode because that's kind of an inevitability with big projects like this. Anthony Birch was actually the lead writer for Borderlands 2 and the pre-sequel, and while he's not everyone's cup of tea, he's definitely a writer that I look up to. He was on the writing team for Fiona and Cake, he's a DM for Dungeons and Daddies. When he hits hard. Anthony Birch is a great writer. I heard a rumor that the team struggled so much with writing Handsome Jack and Tails that they begged Birch to come back, even though he was supposed to leave to work on something else. Couldn't find the source, but it makes sense that he would only be a consultant at the beginning and moved up to writer the second Jack started having more plot relevance. I'm just shocked because I thought it was the other way around. Episodes 4 and 5 are pretty good, and as a whole, I think Tales from the Borderlands is fucking great, but it almost feels like there's a wrong way to play it. Yes, he's abusive and manipulative and underhanded and works solely for his own best interest. Stabbing someone in the back is not the problem for me. It's a typical Tuesday for him. It's just a lot of little things that make it feel weird. Ignoring Handsome Jack and Reese's chemistry, and how dumb the plan is, Tails butchers what made him such a threat in the first place. In Borderlands 2, he was only a threat because he was so clever and always 3 steps ahead of you. He openly mocked every bit of progress you made because all the pieces were falling into place, and you were effectively falling into trap after trap after trap. He only started slipping when you killed Angel because that was the first time you managed to accomplish something he didn't have a contingency plan for. Handsome Jack is also super paranoid. That was the whole point of the pre-sequel. It shows how he became so paranoid and distrustful of everyone. But at the end of the day, Handsome Jack always rewards loyalty. He'll watch out for the people that follow him until they stab him in the back, and Reese only said no to being a flesh suit. He didn't say no to helping Jack with his plan entirely. With all of this in mind, why the fuck did he even consider Reese as a candidate? Why would he assume that he would agree with it? And when he disagreed point blank before they reached a point of no return, why the fuck did he take it so personally?
This could be a fun segment where the 3 of us try to recall what the fucking question at the beginning of the episode even was.
So, I made this video to answer one question. Well, I guess 3. When was Handsome Jack good? Why was he good? And what fucked up this perfect set of pixels so bad? Writing-wise, I asked these originally thinking that something as simple as shifting writers and misinterpretation can greatly warp a character to the point you almost don't recognize them. But all the games with him in it didn't go without his creator. Ignoring all of my problems with the pre-sequel, Jack being out of character was not one of them. And honestly, up until the end of Tales, Jack felt pretty in character there too. Finding out that last bit about Anthony Birch having that level of involvement in Tales kind of broke this video because it skewed my original thesis so much. I thought I was wrong about everything, but I remembered that I never watched his other GDC talk. Plot is dumb, characters are cool. And it didn't just get me to the real question, but it helped me answer it. Why did Jack's end in Tails make me so mad? What made pre-sequel so weak to me? And the answer is because they sacrificed Jack's character for the sake of improving the plot. They forgot the reason why Borderlands 2 and Tiny Tina's Assault on Dragonkeep did so well. It was because its characters and the development that they went through was so strong.
Tina, Brick, Lilith, and Mordecai play a game of Bunkers and Badasses, and that's it. Like, nothing happens. They sit at a fucking table and they shoot the shit. I mean, there's still, like, a story there because there's a whole thing of, like, there's a character in Borderlands 2 who died, spoilers, named Roland, and Tina doesn't believe that he's dead, and she keeps thinking, like, oh, he's going to show up, he's going to play with us eventually. And all the other characters are like, no, you have to accept that he's dead, and she's, like, using the fantasy as a way to escape grief. People really liked that DLC. That is by far the most acclaimed amongst our fans of the DLC. And, like, to the point where some people said they cried at the end of the DLC, which is crazy because right after a thing that happens that's supposed to make you cry, a pony made of diamonds shows up and vomits a rainbow out of her mouth and, like, brings light back to the world. So that was kind of cool.
Pre-sequel didn't teach us anything new about Handsome Jack beyond the fact that he used to be a blindly optimistic and well-meaning person, and why he doesn't trust anyone anymore. Tails was a really great story, and I guarantee you that if I didn't play any other Borderlands games and make the wrong choices, I would have loved it. Reese and Fiona are such great characters, it's pretty easy to focus more on them and almost forget the times Jack doesn't feel quite right. I enjoyed going back to Tails so much more than I thought I would. I'm not gonna lie, writing-wise, I think it's one of the best games in the series. In terms of games in general, I think it's one of the funniest games ever written, and Jack wasn't there to develop into something more, he was there to make the introduction to these new characters a lot easier for the pre-existing Borderlands audience. So I thought! Handsome Jack is an extremely compelling villain, but he's still a villain. His purpose is to be an obstacle and create obstacles for the protagonist to overcome, and as much as he'd hate to admit it, he's not the hero. And honestly, he never will be. Not for the franchise, not for Pandora, and not for Hyperion. Just an extremely memorable threat, and my best frenemy. Oh, shit, I almost forgot about that one question 3.
Get down! No! No!
Mommy?
No! Angel, what did you do? What did you do?
Sorry, I guess the real answer to that timeline question is pre-sequel is a bad game. Bye!